Yo, everybody. Hey, I think it's April 8th, Wednesday, I think. And getting ready to start the day. John Prine passed away. You know, I just started listening to Prine heavily the last couple of years, and he's blown me away. So I think what we ought to do is set up a John Prine memorial in Scobert Park, video projector, sound system very soon, and play a bunch of videos. Bring candles, bring your lounge chairs, bring quilts, bring your flask, bring your ganja, and let's celebrate John Prine. Just stay 6 feet away. We'll see what happens later. Okay, one other thing. I'm going to take off here soon and try to track down Okra, the streetwise, living on the streets for 35 years, mountain man looking motherfucker. And he's got a lot of cool shit to say. So we'll get a hopefully extended interview with him today and listen to some of his wise words. He's got some, you know. I listen. I don't usually don't, but this cat I listen to, so hopefully you will too later. Okra. Okra. Hey, man. Give you a few more minutes.
Just give me a second to pull the boulder in behind my cave and come out there. I'll meet you on the pathway.
Sounds good. See you in a bit.
You want to be on the lookout. This is the time right now. There's a little white golf cart that drives around this path right now. It's from the water plant. He's looking for me. He doesn't know I'm here. I mean, he's looking for anybody. But so that's why if you just like go on up back on the path.
Gotcha.
And just let me like pull my boulder in and grab some tobacco and shit. And I'll be out there in just a second, okay?
I got a couple of
Because if we're going to be away for a little bit, I need to make sure that nobody can. All right?
All right, see you in a bit.
I've been socially isolated for years. It's not really a whole lot of difference. I don't come into contact with very many people. I stick close to my bushes out in the middle of nowhere. I talk to almost nobody ever. So things aren't that much different. I suspect for the people jammed up in missions and in those camps, they're not thinking pandemic, they're thinking let's get a lot of people housed, you know. But I've heard anecdotally from other homeless people who told me that their immune systems were really strong because we're always exposed to minute amounts of so-called bad things, but we develop immunity to it. Like we garbage pick, we recycle, we get canned, we touch cans, you know. We're always out in the outdoor air. One dude the other day, Patrick, he's been homeless for about 6 years. He told me, he's like, I don't ever remember getting sick, but when I went and stayed in one of those camps, I got like a flu, and I didn't lose it until I got kicked out 2 weeks later. So I have a feeling that homeless people might be more resistant. And I hear concerns on the radio about opening up like convention centers and packing homeless people in there to so-called allow them to shelter. And I have a feeling it's some weird, odd reversal of things, of reality. This might be the one time where we might be the strong population, except for the number of old people who do have diabetes and hypertension and things like that, you know. I worry myself. I'm in pretty good shape, but my lungs fill up with fluid all the time, and I'm a little paranoid because there's nothing I could do about it. I would just die under a bridge. Basically, no one would even know that I existed until they found my body a month later, you know? All those rocks there were rolled down there by homeless people who were trying to carve out a little spot where they could sleep, a little flat area. And so somebody would come in at night and spend an hour or two pulling these rocks and lifting them up and rolling them down the hill so that they could have a little spot. And then you got the buildup of the rocks down there, and every once in a while the Parks Department will come back and they'll bring in these big machines down in here and they'll just reload it up with sharp rocks again. And this is this bridge, but this is going on under most bridges in the United States.
What was that again? You were on the street for about 2 years?
For about 2 years.
So what Okra's saying you experienced?
It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But I was on the street with pregnant girls, so it made it a little bit harder, and they weren't any nicer.
They kept you moving, huh?
Oh, all the time. But not everybody keeps it nasty. Not everybody keeps it dirty. Some do,
Yeah.
but not everybody does. But what he's saying is absolutely right, sir. You have a good day.
You too. Catch any fish?
No, but had a good time anyway.
All right. Have a good day.
You know, most of the big picture is going to be missed by people who are blindsided by their concern about business. The fucking economy all the time is all anybody can think about. People aren't realizing the seriousness, not of this specific thing, but of where we're headed to as a society based on technology and hierarchy and domination of nature. When you look at anywhere, wherever humans got onto a large scale, where they had like surplus agriculture put aside, they had a bureaucracy of people who didn't do any work, but instead managed stuff, meaning that there's got to be a bunch of other people out in some fields making their clothing, growing their food, harvesting their meat, and they're not going to be happy about it. They're doing it because there's no other option. They're slaves in some one fashion or another. And that those societies always need to go and like somehow raid other societies or raid resources. They have to always grow. All of them collapsed. There's never been one that made it. They all fell from the same thing. All that has to happen is you have a bad harvest 3 or 4 years in a row, combined with a pandemic, combined with the civil unrest, the insecurity that happens, and with climate change. As the temperatures go up and places that were formerly habitable and capable of agriculture are going to no longer be habitable. All along, everywhere from Miami, Tallahassee, Baltimore, New York, Savannah, Georgia, San Diego, millions of people are going to have to march inland. And there's not going to be housing, there's not going to be health care, there's not going to be safety for all these people. And they're going to get sick. They're going to have compromised immune systems from bad nutrition and living under refugee conditions. And eventually, who's going to fill in those gaps in the void of authority? Like, big authority is going to withdraw to a manageable space, you know, like New York, Washington, or something, you know, where the Pentagon can protect it. Everywhere else is going to be ruled by crime gangs, basically. And in some cases, it'll be like mutual aid societies. I bet you around Eugene, there's going to be a bunch of anarchists that pop up out of the woodwork and form mutual assistance societies and mutual aid society. But in other places, it's going to be fascists, it's going to be religious people, it's going to be all kind of just fucking crazy kook people. You know, I just imagine some like Native Americans facing some kind of a problem, and they would all sit together and talk it out and figure out what's the best thing to do. We always would have some conservatives, businessmen, Republicans that would always say we're shutting down the economy. We'll never be able to fully address these things because in order to address it, some people have to give up some privilege and power and money. That's the way it would have to work. And they're not going to do it, and they have all the guns. We can't change things by voting. We can't change things with our economic preferences, like buying our way out. Or there's no such thing as green cars, and it's brown, man. It was made in a factory by wage slaves. Uses a ton of water. You can't make a car out of a solar panel. The thing is to give up cars, and we're never going to do those things. The only thing that I can see is, it seems like the most revolutionary thing you can do is growing your own food And that's the most revolutionary, radical thing that you can do, is to limit your contact with capitalism, with money, from the need to have money, and convince your friends to do the same, and to form like living groups, sort of replicating what indigenous people have always done. That's the way we were supposed to live as humans. When we get into these little enclaves, we're going to bring some of that in with us. Possessiveness, domination, relations with women, all kinds of stuff. And we have to rethink how we treat each other and get rid of monotheism, monogamy, possession, domination of nature. We can do all that and return more to the way we were living as indigenous people. And we all were indigenous people at some point. Dominant God was not a sky father who was vengeful. It was a earth mother who was nurturing. And we knew that the secret of life wasn't competition like in capitalism. It was cooperation. We see symbiosis. Everywhere we look at nature, there's symbiosis. That's how everything's, you just look at a lichen. It's two different life forms living together. And if we had not done that, had we stayed on that thing, we would have, in our own indigenous ways, also evolved. We would always have been like improving on our knowledge, on doing things. Fuck, man, by now we'd be talking to each other with our minds, probably, without even using our mouths or sound. Who knows what we need to get back on that trail. That's the trail to an advanced species. The way you can tell an advanced species is not by the way that it can dominate and kill everything around it, but by looking at like oak trees and things that have been around for the longest. Everything that I've just said, they're not thinking about any of that stuff. They're thinking about the stock price of Boeing. That's what they're thinking about. And as a result, the only thing that you can do is take care of the people right immediately around you. Form little communities in your area and then spread the virus of those communities. Show other people. My secret fantasy would be that there would be people who did such a thing, and then other people would be living in the neighborhoods around them, going to their jobs, fighting with their spouses, feeling crushed by capitalism and the weight of bills. And they'd be looking over at these other people who are all dressed beautifully and healthy and eating their own organic food and playing guitar and fucking and making art all the time. And they would say, why am I doing this? And they would drop out. How is it that some old bum sitting by the river could know this shit? That is not a fucking pat on my back at all, dude. It's a horror of realization